much better. Super. So I'd like to start by just thanking the organizers of TED for inviting me here. I feel very honored to be here in Manila today. And so I'm going to share with you guys for the next 18 minutes to be precise with TED. For 18 minutes, some ideas about where I think the future of education is going. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of a background, which will give you an idea about why I'm here in the first place. Overall, I'm a very lucky person. So my mother was great. She taught me how to read when I was just 2 years old. And at that point, I became a voracious devourer of every book, everything I could learn. When I was about 4 years old, my family moved to Iran, and I went to an English-speaking school in Tehran. And one of the first innovations that I was exposed to was a school where you were in a class based on your ability, not based on your age. So the nice thing about it, because I love mathematics, for example, and I was doing little, long division or multiplication quite early, you never got bored. They would just simply say, hey, you're doing good. Maybe next week you're in the next class up. So up until then, I was pretty lucky. Then I went back to England, and I continued on my lucky streak. So my parents sent me to a very good school in England, which I've always, deeply respected. And I was around students who loved to learn. The teachers were really fantastic. They always figured out a way to make learning fun. And I have a distinct memory. I think I was 17 years old in my mathematics class, being taught mathematics by a PhD, and thinking, school is really fantastic. I think I want to be a teacher when I finally, start making some money, because everyone's having such a good time. But unfortunately, when I graduated, then I find out that teachers don't make too much money. So I decided instead to go after a career in computer science, which is one of my loves. So I got my degree in computer science. Then I went to America and got my master's degree. And while I was there, the university said to me, hey, Graham, would you like to teach here? And I just remember, from my childhood how much I liked it. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. And I had literally no teacher training. I had never taught anyone anything in my entire life. So I turn up in the day, and I'd written on the back of the envelope, say hello to everyone, welcome, tell them what you're going to learn, make the rest of it up. And that was that was my lesson plan. But I have to say, I had such a good time. The whole process of education felt very natural to me. And I was on a total natural high. Like, I couldn't sleep that night because I was so excited about being a teacher. So I did that for a few years, and then I realized I can actually make a lot more money by teaching this stuff in industry. So then I formed my first company, which is a professional training company. That went really great. And then I kind of took a detour in my career, and I went back to software engineering, and I decided to start building products that were more for enterprises. But in the back of my head, I remember chatting with people saying, if I can ever do it one time, I want to get back into education and make a difference. So once again, I was a lucky guy again. So I managed to sell my last software company, which gave me the financial freedom to pursue some of my dreams in the world of education. But I'm a big believer that if you want to make a difference, you don't want to just do like a little thing. You really want to think about, what is fundamentally some of the issues with education and how we can make things fundamentally better. So my belief is the fundamental issue with education has nothing to do with teacher wages, it's nothing to do with technology. It's because of a fundamental lack of innovation. And the main reason for a lack of innovation is because of a lack of competition. And unfortunately, most governments around the world have granted themselves a monopoly on providing education. So someone high up in the government will say, this is the curriculum, this is the way you teach it, you go to your school, you sit in class from morning to evening, every hour you take your particular subject from your particular teacher, and that's it. Now contrast that with fields like telecommunications. So, everyone's familiar with, your iPhone or your Java phone. And in 20 years, we went from huge, bulky landlines to these slimline, super fast 3G cell phones in like 20 years. And it's because there's a lot of competition and a lot of innovation in that particular area. Now you contrast that against education, and I bet you, if you look at a class today, typical class, bunch of students sitting behind desks, taking notes, do that for 3 months, take an exam, it was probably the same 1,000 years ago. So in the world of education, there's very little innovation. So what I did, before I decided what I was actually going to do, I wanted to study, are there any countries around the world where they actually encourage competition and innovation? And the country that I think is actually the most innovative is Sweden. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how they solve this problem in Sweden, the kinds of schools they have in Sweden, and then some of the things that I've tried to do to kind of bring that to other people. So if I was going to categorize what Sweden has done, is that they've figured out a way to kind of do what I would call modular learning. But the first thing that they did, even more important than this, is the Swedish government decided that they were going to open up and create a free competitive marketplace for education. So what they said was, they said, for every child that you have, we're going to give you a certain fixed number of krona, which is the Swedish currency. And you parents, you can pick whatever school you want to send your kids to. They all get the same amount of money paid for by the government. And we're also going to allow anyone to start a school as long as it has, you know, some of the basics. So what happened is, within maybe 10 years, they went from almost no one in Sweden going to a more innovative school to over 10% of all Swedish kids now go to some of these much more innovative schools. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about one particular school called knowledge schools. And I think these knowledge schools are absolutely awesome. And there is no reason whatsoever why this model could not be adopted across the world. It's usually a political issue more than it is a technological or price issue. So here's how knowledge schools work. So if you join a knowledge school, the first thing is you are allocated your own personal advisor who advises you on how to best learn over your career. And what they've done in the knowledge schools is they've modularized all the various subjects. So there's 100 modules, say, in physics, 100 modules in chemistry, 100 in math, so on and so forth. And the way that it works is all the modules are online, so you can see every single module whenever you want. And you can also take a test on a module whenever you want to show that you understand that module and go to the next one. You can study for a module however you want. So what they've done is they've said, you can learn what you want. Oops. Okay, so try that again. You can learn however you want, and you can learn whenever you want, and you can test out whenever you want. So I'll give you an example of like a typical kids' day in knowledge schools. So let's just say you're really into mathematics. So over the weekend, you go to the internet and you start studying module number 37, and you think, wow, this is a pretty easy module. So you go to school on Monday and you take the test and you're finished with module 37. Now you start taking module 38 because you're really into math. But then you get stuck and you think, I really want a one-on-one session with a lecturer. So you go to the online schedule and you find out, oh, tomorrow there's a math lecture live seminar from noon until 2 p.m. So I'm going to turn up. And in the meantime, I'm going to start taking the biology module. You go along to the seminar, the live seminar, which is more like a traditional lecture. You ask the teacher a whole bunch of questions. You get your answers. Then you chat with a few friends and you say, let's have a study session tomorrow between 8 and 10 and share notes and see if we can't figure out module 38 together. When you finally figure it out, you take module 38, you move on to module 39. And it's one of the only school systems that I know where they have basically decoupled what you learn and when you learn it and how you learn it and when you actually get assessed on it. And notice what I've described there has nothing to do with technology at all. It's just a fundamental rethinking about the way the education process. And as I mentioned, it's a private organization. So it's a private school. It's profitable, even though they only get the same amount of money, and they cannot build these schools fast enough. So what I decided to do, I thought, well, it seems pretty clear to me that at some point there is going to be a completely free modular education system that everyone in the entire world can log onto the internet and get to. But instead of having your private advisor who might be a human being, it'll be more like the Amazon shopping recommendation system. So you'll log on and it'll find out your preferences and it will recommend you which modules, and it can team you up with similar level of people all over the world online, or you can go to your local school and maybe get live seminars and so forth. So I think the Swedish model of the knowledge schools is a completely reproducible thing. So a few years ago, I decided I would take my computer science knowledge and build an online version of kind of the knowledge school. And part one was make it super easy for any school to get online completely free. And one of the reasons I'm in the Philippines right now is there's thousands of teachers and students all over the Philippines using the site. So which is, you know, it definitely warms my heart. However, I did find there was one problem with the whole thing. So even though it's really successful and schools are getting online, I found that it's actually really hard, and for understandable reasons, for teachers to create these high-quality modules. Because most teachers are, you know, worn out at the end of the day, and it's really hard to create a high-quality, reusable module. So I realized after a few years of doing this that getting schools online was a really good thing, but creating the modules is actually going to take money. So at some point in the future, I'm sure Bill Gates or Warren Buffett will create some fantastic set of modules, and then companies like mine will host them. But I decided that going through the modular route with a high quality thing wasn't going to happen for free. But then here's the second part of the story. This is kind of the funny part for me. I started thinking more deeply again about what is actually, how can you fundamentally improve education even beyond this? Because to me this is like the state of the art of school systems in the world right now. And I kind of had this sinking feeling after having a few ideas that maybe there's an even fundamentally better way for people to learn beyond this kind of modular learning. And so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to finish up by telling you what I think is the real future of education. I think this is going to be pretty big over the next 5-10 years, but what I think is going to be actually even bigger is what I call adventure learning. Now I know when you see this cute picture, you think, oh, it's a video game. And the notion of a game in education is actually a bit misleading, because most games in education are more ways to practice what you learned in a traditional classroom. So they're fun things, but you don't actually learn the core concept by playing the game. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could come up with some kind of adventure that you could play on your browser or through the iPhone, and by simply playing this adventure, you could learn, let's just say, all of math, from when you're 6 years old until you're 17 years old. And one of the driving forces, there's a little quote there from Benjamin Franklin. I'm going to read it because I know it's pretty small. It says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." And one of the truths, whether you like it or not, if you're a regular teacher, you are competing for attention with super duper 3D virtual reality gaming systems. Didn't used to be like that 20 years ago. So another belief of mine is that by presenting education through a really fun video style, kids are going to be just drawn naturally to it. So let me give you an example of what adventure learning would be like. As I say, you can actually create an adventure for all of mathematics, but I'm going to focus on just one particular scene in this adventure. So in this particular adventure, you are like a kid who's been kidnapped by pirates, and they've taken you aboard their pirate ship, and you have this really, really great adventure. It's almost like Star Wars, but in pirates. And there's one particular scene where you and your friends, you want to steal the treasure from the pirates to get off the island to go to the next part of your adventure. And you need to steal the treasure so you can buy a raft and buy food for your long journey. So the pirates say to you, "Hey boys, do you want to help us bury some treasure?" And you say, yeah, sure. And they go, "Well, we'll come out with us to the islands and we'll show you how to bury the treasure. Then you can bury it for us, and then from now on you can do all the dirty work for us, and we'll give you a few gold pieces." So you and your friend go along, and then the pirate gets out the compass and says, "Okay, watch what I do. 20 paces north." And they count out the 20, and you learn how to do counting and math and multiplication earlier on in the game. And you see the guy draw the map, and then he turns around east, and now go 40 paces east, and he draws the little map for you, and then he digs down 2 feet and buries the treasure. And he goes, "Did you get that?" And you and your friend go, yeah, that was pretty easy. He goes, "Okay, now you do it." So you go back to the beginning, and then you start counting, and you count 40 paces, and you write down 40 on the map, and the guy goes, no, your pace is a half our pace, so you have to remember to divide by 2. But you learned division early on in the game, that's no problem, so you write down 20. So you basically proceed to draw out this pirate map. You have a great time doing it, and the guy goes, well done, boys, here's the 10 gold pieces. And then when night falls, then you and your friends sneak out, and you pull out the map, and now this time you're doing it by starlight. But that's okay, you've got your compass, and this time, of course, you have to multiply by 2 to get the right number of paces, and you go north, and then you go east, and then you dig down, then you find the treasure. And this time, you take the whole lot. So you take all the treasure, you divide it up amongst yourselves, and then you've got to the next part of the game. Now at this point, the little parrot, who's kind of your companion, says, for an extra 20 gold pieces, do you want to know what you just learnt? And you go, yeah, okay. You just learnt Cartesian coordinate system. For another 10 gold pieces, do you want to learn a little bit about the history of this? So you go, yeah, and you get an extra 10 points, and it tells you there was this French guy called Mr. Cartesian, and he invented this map system. And you go, wow, that's pretty cool. And then he goes, for another 20 points, let me tell you something. It says, some mathematicians, instead of using north and east and digging down, they use X and Y and Z. Do you want to have a go at finding a treasure now using a map where I use X, Y, and Z instead? Because there's even more treasure there. So the kid's like, yeah, of course. So notice that the big shift here is that you're learning math without even realizing it. You're doing something that makes sense to you. You never say, like, why would I ever want to know Cartesian coordinates? Because you already found treasure, okay? You know it's really useful. And interestingly enough, you can teach virtually all of mathematics this way. You can learn probability without even knowing about it. You can learn statistics without never feeling you're learning math. You can learn trigonometry in exactly the same way. So the cool part is the technology already exists to bring this technology completely free to everyone in the world with internet access. So I'm going to finish up with a little sneak peek of what I personally hope to get involved with next year. It's like a 20-second video. You just got to close your eyes. Well, not close your eyes, you won't see the video. Oops. And so I just want you to compare this. You go into a class and you sit down and you've got your book and the teacher goes, okay, today we're going to do trigonometry. Open your book to page 13, Now compare this with this kind of introduction. Sound, please. So just imagine learning mathematics through a game that starts like that. I think that would be awesome. So anyway, thank you very much for your time.